If you have $5,000, what is the best lightweight electric dirt bike that you can buy in today's current market? Well, today we ride 8 of the most popular lightweight e-motos to help you decide. And to help me evaluate these bikes, I've got these 3 hooligans right here.
We've got Dustin, a double A-class enduro racer, Michael races the B-class, and Mike is a former downhill mountain bike racer, recently turned moto rider. The best part about these test riders is that they are mixed in both size and skill levels. All have both mountain bike and moto experience, but have hardly ridden any of these electric dirt bikes before. All 4 of us are going to ride each of these 8 bikes and then rank them based on our own unique opinions. By now you're probably wondering what bikes we're testing. We've got the Beta Explorer, Surron Lightbee X, Talaria Sting R, Rawrr Mantis, E-Ride Pro SS 2.0, Stage 2 M1, RFN Ares DLX version 2.0, and the 79 Bike Falcon M. Well, the Falcon M is running a bit late. Technically in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, so we'll address that one later in the video.
Oh yeah, and one more thing that we're going to talk about later in this video. We're actually giving one of these bikes away, so stay tuned for that.
So over the course of multiple days, we rode these bikes at 2 different locations to see how they fared. Each of us then privately ranked them on a scale from 1 to 8 to find out the best bike. Speaking of the best, if you're looking for the best way to find new places to ride, you need to check out OnX Off-Road. With over 650,000 miles of routable trails and endless features like 3D and topo maps, route tracking, and guided trails, it's super easy to e-scout and map your ride, which is pretty damn important on these bikes. So check out OnX Off-Road and use the code ECR to save 20% when signing up. Now before we disclose the overall winner, we're going to show you some features of each bike and show you how they rank against each other in each category. There needs to be a point made in the peak power rankings, because 3 of these bikes actually have a turbo button that lasts a brief amount of time. So it goes without saying that the 3 highest power bikes are also the ones that top this list. So take that with a grain of salt and factor in the nominal power as well. This one is a tie for first place between the RFN and the Beta, with 12.5 kilowatts, with the E-Ride Pro in a close number 3 with 12 kilowatts peak and 5 kilowatts nominal. There was also a tie for last place with the Surron Lightbee X and Stage 2, with 6 kilowatts of peak and 3 kilowatts of nominal power. Next, let's look at battery capacity. The RFN Ares Rally DLX comes out on top with 3.2 kilowatt hours of capacity. Then the E-Ride Pro with 2.9 kilowatt hours, Talaria with 2.7, Beta with 2.6, Rawrr and 79 Bike tied with 2.5, Surron with 2.3, and Stage 2 with 2.1. Now there is more to the picture than just the size of the battery, so we ran all of these bikes down to roughly 15%, or when the bike's power was noticeably too anemic to keep riding at a normal speed, to figure out which bike has the best range. Here's how they finished. Starting from the best to the worst, we had the E-Ride Pro coming in at a strong 25 miles, and the Stage 2 with the low score of 11 miles. When it comes time to stop, who did it best? The 79 bike is the clear winner in this category. It's got the best brakes that we've seen on any of these stock lightweight e-motos. The E-Ride Pro came in second, and the Rawrr Mantis came in at a distant last place in this category. From the lightest to the heaviest, we've got the Surron at a featherlight 123 pounds, and the Mantis being the heaviest at 165 pounds. We'll get into some details on suspension later, but we gave first place to the Sting R, Lightbee X, E-Ride Pro SS. While we do prefer the fork on the Stage 2 over the Lightbee and the E-Ride Pro, the shock was not as good, so we put that in fourth. The Beta and the RFN are tied. Next is the Rawrr Mantis, and last place is the 79 bike. Last but not least, let's talk about price. We're only going to speak to the MSRP of these bikes, because different dealers and manufacturers will discount these bikes without warning, and it is near impossible to keep up with. So although these are MSRPs, you can often find all of these bikes for cheaper depending on where you buy them from. Stage 2 at $4,200, Talaria and Surron are tied at $4,500, 79 bike at $4,799, E-Ride Pro at $4,899, Mantis at $4,999, RFN at $5,099, and the Beta at $5,200. Before we break each of these bikes down, we want to start out with a nice, healthy drag race. We're going to start out with these four bikes: the Beta, Surron, Talaria, and Rawrr.
All right, you guys ready? We're going to do it in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. All right. Talaria Sting took that one. Who got second place? I didn't. You got second place? Sting definitely takes it again. Ah! That was pretty neck and neck. That was close. So we gotta figure out, I feel like the Beta came in third on that, and then the second was Rawrr.
Yeah, I think so.
Go! I think it's pretty clear. Talaria Sting R, fastest bike. Rawrr Mantis, second fastest. Beta, third. Surron is the slowest. All right, we're gonna do one more pass, but this time, I'm gonna put the Beta in rocket mode. See if we can beat that Sting R. 3, 2, 1, go! So long, sucker! All right, rocket mode works.
All right, so now we're gonna take the Sting R and race it against the RFN, E-Ride Pro, and Stage 2.
3, 2, 1, go. E-Ride Pro definitely wins. You're probably the heaviest rider.
I'm like 185.
Yeah.
Plus gear.
185, and you just smoked us.
Yeah.
Yeah. He got the jump, and he is gone on the E-Ride Pro. I don't think that Talaria is going to be a match for that bike either. So you're full peak power, rocket mode, E-Ride Pro, and Talaria. Go. Oh, I wheelied that time. Dude, it's close between these two bikes because I wheelied on that one.
Yeah.
Go. Oh yeah. Dude, I think that this has got to be the fastest bike.
Yeah, for
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
It's one every time.
Yep. All right. So yeah, E-Ride Pro fastest, Sting R second.
It is not a true comparison without including the 79 bike. So once the Falcon M arrived, we raced it against the second fastest bike, the Talaria Sting R.
Ready, 3, 2, 1, go.
Once it beat out the Sting R, we put the Falcon M head-to-head with the E-Ride Pro SS to figure out which is the fastest bike of the test.
Whoa, squirrely! Dude, you gotta try this. I didn't get a start. I was like all over the place. I think the E-Ride Pro is the clear winner.
It was clear that we had a distinct winner in the E-Ride Pro, with a somewhat distant third place going to Talaria. which has a much smaller rear sprocket. So we figured we'd do a top speed run to see if the acceleration also translates to top speed.
So we're checking out the top speed of these things. I'm on the Talaria Sting R. Let's see what the top speed is. I saw 52 miles an hour on that speedo, so that feels pretty good. 52 miles an hour. All right, now we are on the E-Ride Pro for a top speed run. Let's see what this thing does. I saw 54 on the speedo here, 54 miles an hour. That's pretty good. This thing's sporty.
Now let's do an individualized breakdown of each individual bike, and then after that, we'll tell you how they scored overall.
First up, we have the Beta Explorer. This bike is the most expensive and carries the most iconic brand name out of all of these bikes. With that brand name comes an extensive dealer network, which should mean good support if you ever have an issue. We think this is one of the coolest looking bikes of the test, with its unique shroud designs and Beta red styling. A big win for the Beta is the 18-inch rear wheel with Kenda tires, offering better grip than most other bikes in the test. Some points we found to be negative on the Beta are its brake sensors. We did try to disconnect them, but they're required to start the bike. So then we tried to do the brake override, and noticed that they would eventually turn themselves back on, even when we left the bike powered on. This makes it super hard to modulate the power, and something we would really like to see solved on this bike. It's got a very flexy swing arm. As impactful as that may seem, it didn't really bother any of us too much. Battery removal is a bit complicated compared to the other bikes. The upside is that you get a full-size seat, but we noticed ourselves going out of our way to avoid removing the battery whenever it was an option. We like the burst of power in rocket mode, but it goes away so fast that it's not really anything we'd ever consider using, unless maybe trying to grab a hole shot. It suffers from a pretty low front end, but some of us did comment on the suspension being a positive attribute when set up properly. Overall, we think the Beta has potential, but it just came up short in a few areas. Next up, we have the tried and true Surron Lightbee X. Surron also deserves a tip of the hat in the dealer network department, as they have done a solid job setting up dealers across the country, which should be a big benefit to the brand. In addition to the dealer network, these little Surrons have a ton of aftermarket options. So if you're wanting to modify and make your bike unique, the Surron has plenty to offer in that department. We feel that because of its size and weight, this is one of the best dirt jump bikes out of all the bikes, because it's the smallest of the bunch and most resembles a BMX bike. However, its size and weight can have a negative effect when it comes to rougher terrain or overall comfort for larger riders. The suspension on this bike actually performed better than we thought it would, which wasn't always the case in previous year versions of this bike. It's definitely a bit underpowered and a bit outdated in the brakes and ergonomic department compared to the other bikes. But what you sacrifice in those areas, you make up for in proven longevity, as these bikes have been around the longest out of all of these bikes. Yes, you guessed it, it's the Rawrr Mantis. The Mantis is one of the biggest feeling bikes out of the group, which is a positive in most areas. The bike feels like it has decent power at the crack of the throttle, but being that it's a 72 volt bike, that power signed off really early in comparison to the other 72 volt bikes in this test. Some complained that the suspension was not the greatest. However, the holdup and overall stiffness seemed to be a positive checkmark for the Mantis. The step seat was something that stood out, as the overall nature of the Mantis feels like it needs some height in the front, which is a common trait amongst almost all these bikes, but the step-down seat further emphasizes that. And the brakes. We don't know if it's the pads or the brakes themselves, but this bike is downright hard to stop, and something that we plan to look into. Next up, we have the Talaria Sting R. The ergonomics of this bike is something that jumped out to all of us. It feels sized correctly without having a weird balance, although we do think the front of the bike could also sit a little bit higher. Another thing that jumped out at us is the battery rattling inside the battery compartment. It definitely requires some extra attention to pad this thing to keep it from smacking around inside the battery compartment. It's not the fastest of the group, but the power feels solid and consistent, despite it having a small 44-tooth rear sprocket. Suspension is a big bonus for the Sting R, with the fork on this bike spec'd with the Fast Ace fork, and some models coming with the Talaria factory fork. It's definitely the nicest factory suspension choice that we've seen. Even though our brake line blew out, the Sting R did have great stopping power before we sent the cable into the wheel, but that was our error during setup. Like the Lightbee X, the Sting R has a ton of upgrade options, and it makes it a really viable bike to customize. The RFN is a bike that surprised us a little bit. Before you say the Beta and the RFN are the same exact bike, they actually have some noticeable differences. Notably, the power in rocket mode on the RFN lasts for 60 seconds, opposed to the Beta's 10. The tires, moto-style brake lines, and styling are all big bonus points for the RFN. The headlight and number plate combo gives the rider options for riding at night or just keep the bike looking more cross-country or MX style. The pegs are upgraded and are definitely the best offered within this group. Unlike the Beta, we were actually able to keep the brake sensors turned off, but it's still a bit annoying to have to do that every time you turn the key on. RFN reinforced the swing arm so that it flexes less than the Beta, but it's still quite noticeable on this bike too. When it comes to ergonomics, the RFN has a very low front end feeling, and it can make the bike awkward to ride. Despite its claimed power output and higher voltage battery, the bike just does not feel as peppy as the other high voltage bikes in this test, and the throttle response can feel quite disconnected from the bike, and it has a tendency to feel really jerky off the crack of the throttle. It's a bike we all notice ourselves dragging the pegs on in deeper ruts. Like the Beta, we think there's plenty of opportunity for improvement, but it's still missing some key marks. Another bike that surprised us was the Stage 2 M1. This bike definitely has the look, feel, and ergonomics that we're after. It has some of the most comfortable and adult-sized ergonomics out of all of these bikes. Some of the complaints were that it has a very unusual bar bend with way too much sweep. Obviously this is an easy part to correct, but it has a big impact on the way that the bike feels. The pegs feel high, which isn't such a bad thing, but taller riders may want to look to drop those down and back. The front end feels a bit low, but the bike is running a Fast Ace fork, and we all noted that, like the Talaria, the fork felt really solid compared to the other bikes. We all had our concerns with the linkageless shock design with a variable rate coil spring, but all things considered, the rear end of the bike felt surprisingly good for being designed this way. Some other misses are that there's not a battery percentage readout, and the biggest miss is that the bike feels really slow overall. We'd be keen to try this bike again with a controller tune and a different bar bend, because it may turn out to be a real contender with some minor improvements. The E-Ride Pro SS is the fastest bike by a long shot, beating out every bike, even while other bikes like the Beta and RFN had rocket mode on. And it surprisingly also had the highest top speed. The suspension rides quite high in the stroke, and once it broke in a little bit, that holdup proved to be a nice feature on the mini moto track. Some complaints are that it has a touchy front end, which gives the bike a bit of a nervous feeling up front, but was overall something that we all seem to get used to. And we'd be a little concerned about that big old display, both for your face or the ground, if it made contact with either of those things. This bike comes equipped with a lot of nice features, like its bar headlight with an on and off switch, riser bars, and oversized brake rotors. Like the Talaria, the battery really rattles inside the compartment, so prepare to cram something in there to stop that. The 79 Bike Falcon M finally showed up after its trip across the Pacific, and we're glad that it did. This bike has a lot of Surron Lightbee X vibes, but it's quite a bit faster thanks to its 72-volt battery, and it has some cool features like a Socin motor, center display, direct bar mount, and super powerful brakes. Actually, the most powerful brakes that we've ever seen on a bike in this category. Something we notice on a lot of these bikes is that they have a tendency to rattle, and you can hear components bouncing around. Talaria, E-Ride Pro, but the 79 bike was one of the bikes that rattled the least. However, it did develop a bit of a clunking noise elsewhere in the linkage area. One big question mark is that we did strip 2 primary belts during our testing, which seems like an unusual amount given that none of the other jackshaft style bikes like the Surron and E-Ride Pro stripped a belt. Suspension left something to be desired on this bike as well, but overall it's got a sporty feel with plenty of power to move you and very strong brakes to stop you. Alright, the moment you have been waiting for. How did these bikes rank for each of us? We each tallied up the bikes from our most favorite to least favorite. And the average of those results put the bikes in this respective order. Coming in as the unanimous winner is the E-Ride Pro SS. A very close second place goes to the Talaria Sting R. Almost too close, but for different reasons, and we couldn't make it a tie. We all agreed that if the Sting R had the power of the E-Ride, it would be a clear winner. 79 Bike Falcon M, Surron Lightbee X, Stage 2 M1, RFN Ares DLX, Beta Explorer, and Rawrr Mantis. Now, if you could slightly modify any of these bikes, are our outcomes still the same? We're going to put that theory to the test in the next video. But for now, that wraps up the 2024 Lightweight E-Moto Shootout here at ECR. And this is basically just an overview of the bikes. If you want more detailed reviews and in-depth thoughts on the bikes, check out the rest of our channel for those videos, or go to electriccyclerider.com to see the articles. Thanks for watching. Oh yeah, and that last thing. We're going to be giving a fully modded bike away, so stay tuned for the next video to learn how to win, because we have a lot more in store for you.